Just for a second, think about the phone in your hand, or the coffee you're drinking, maybe even the car you drive. How did it get to you?
Well, a huge piece of that puzzle is floating on the world's oceans. Global shipping, it's like this invisible engine that powers our entire modern life, but it's a massive, complex system most of us never even see.
And that leads to a pretty huge question, right? I mean, we're talking about absolutely colossal ships, some carrying pretty hazardous materials, navigating some really treacherous waters. So who's making sure the people at the helm actually know what they're doing? Who's looking out for the crew, the cargo, and, the oceans themselves?
Well, believe it or not, there is a global answer. A single international system that's designed to make sure a ship captain from, say, the Philippines, a chief engineer from Greece, and a deck officer from Brazil are all working from the exact same playbook, all meeting the same high standards.
And this is it. This is the official document that governs the whole shebang. It's called the STCW Convention and Code, and it's basically the invisible rulebook for every mariner across the globe.
Now, STCW, that is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? It stands for the International Convention on Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Seafarers. That's the super formal name for the global treaty that really sets the bar for what it means to be a professional sailor, no matter where you're from.
So, what's the big idea behind it all? Well, at its heart, the mission is to create a universal baseline of skill and competence. It's about way more than just doing a job. It's about protecting human lives. It's about protecting the billions of dollars in ships and cargo. And it's about protecting the incredibly fragile marine environment that they all travel through.
Okay, so to really get how the STCW works, you've got to understand that it's actually made of two different but totally connected parts. I like to think of it as the what and the how of maritime safety.
So the whole system is broken into two key pieces. On one side, you have the convention. That's the high-level legal treaty. It's the big promise the countries make to each other. But then you have the code, and that's the incredibly detailed instruction manual that lays out exactly how to keep that promise. It's kind of like a constitution versus the really specific laws that bring that constitution to life.
And if we dive even deeper, the code itself splits in two. Part A is mandatory. These are the non-negotiable, minimum standards that every single country has to enforce, period. Part B is more like recommended guidance. It's the official best practices guide to help everyone apply those rules the same way, nice and consistently.
So that's the structure. It's pretty logical. But what does all this actually look like for the folks on board? Let's get practical and use a real-world example.
Let's picture a specific kind of ship, one you might have even been on yourself, a roll-on, roll-off passenger ship, what sailors call a ro-ro ferry. The ones that carry both people and cars. So what exactly does the STCW Code demand from the crew that's responsible for such a complex operation?
And just look at this list. This is pulled right from the code. We're not talking about vague ideas here. We're talking about concrete, life-saving skills. The crew has to be masters of loading and securing all those vehicles, and here's the really crucial part. They have to calculate the ship's stability as all that weight is shifting around. They even need to know exactly how moving fuel and ballast water around is going to impact the ship's balance. This isn't just a job, it's basically applied physics in a super high-stakes environment.
Okay, so you might be thinking, a rule book like this has to get outdated pretty fast, right? With technology changing and all that. But the SCW isn't some dusty old document just sitting on a shelf. It's actually a living system designed to adapt and evolve. You can see that evolution right here on this timeline. The original convention was adopted way back in 1978. Then came a massive update in 1995. That's when they introduced that detailed technical code we were just talking about. And then again in 2010, another huge set of updates, known as the Manila Amendments, brought the standards squarely into the 21st century. And those Manila Amendments, they tackled modern problems head on. They set new standards for things like emerging technology on the bridge, for security, and for medical fitness. And, really importantly, they also brought in new rules to prevent fatigue by managing how many hours people could work and rest. And just think about the cooperation this takes. 85 nations all came together in Manila to agree on these updates. That number alone tells you everything you need to know about the incredible international consensus that keeps these standards so high and so relevant.
So we've seen all the intricate rules and the high standards, but let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. Why does this complex, kind of invisible rulebook really truly matter to all of us?
It matters because this whole thing, it's the foundation of trust for the entire global economy.
When a ship leaves a port in one country, the country it's sailing to has to be able to trust that the crew on board is competent. The STCW is that system of trust. It's what allows all those goods and materials and energy to move so seamlessly and safely all over our planet.
And when you boil it all down, the guiding star for this whole system has always been the words from the original convention's preamble, to promote safety of life and property at sea and the protection of the marine environment. That's what it's always been about.
So the next time you see one of those huge container ships on the horizon, or you see a truck unloading stuff that you know came from overseas, maybe you'll see it a little differently. Not just as a ship, but as the final product of this incredible, invisible web of global rules, tough training, and a shared commitment to safety that literally keeps our world moving.